Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live on this Tuesday. I've got a great show for you today. A little bit of change from what we usually do on a Tuesday. We'll do Open Forum second hour, and Tim Staples will be here for Open Forum second hour. But we had an opportunity to have a special guest this first hour and did not want to pass this opportunity up. Many of you may well be aware that earlier this year, we got a beautiful letter on the transgender ideology and the church's response to that ideology from the Bishop of Arlington, Virginia, Bishop Michael Burbidge. And we have Bishop Burbidge here with us now. Thank you very much, Bishop Burbidge, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Cy. Great to be with you and great to be with your listeners here tonight. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we'll chat for a little while and then we'll let people call with their questions. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. The letter that Bishop Burbidge released is called A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. Bishop, what prompted you to undertake the writing of this letter?
Well, of course, we're celebrating the Respect Life Month now, right? So it's we uphold that beautiful truth that God created us in His own image, in His own likeness, create us uniquely as man and as woman. And as we know, in our day and age, that reality, that beautiful truth is being challenged, and people are taking paths on which their identity is not congruent with their biological sex, the way that God has made them. And of course, that has all kinds of implications in the lives of individuals, in the social world, educational world, the medical world. And so we thought, Cy, it was really important to present a resource that is a catechetical, a teaching resource, to try to use the great truths of our faith, philosophy, faith and reason, to present what is true, but to do so in a language that would help people to convey this truth to others, because it's being distorted and challenged in so many ways. So we put together a great team of experts in many of these fields, who compassionately and lovingly assisted in this process. And we made a promise that we were not going to create a resource that we're going to need a thick binder to carry it around.
Right.
But it's going to be a catechetical document that would be sound theologically, philosophically, and at the end of the resource contains a lot of endnotes that goes right to direct sources that really, supplement what we're saying in the document if people want to go deeper into what we're conveying.
I have to say, as a catechesis, the language of the document, and again, we're talking with Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, and the document we're referring to is A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. You're welcome to call to participate in the conversation, 888-318-7884. The catechetical tone of the document, I thought, was mild compared to some of the ways that Pope Francis talks about transgenderism. He is very forceful in saying, stop this. This is so dangerous to children. Did you feel like, the Pope kind of has your back on this, at least, because he is not playing around?
Well, no, we used very much in the beginning of the document, we actually used the words of Pope Francis, and that's what we love about Pope Francis, that he does speak. He speaks the language of the people, and he speaks very candidly and very truthfully. And he said exactly what you mentioned there, that let's stop this. Let's stop this confusion. God created us a male or a woman as part of His divine and infant plan. That's something beautiful, and stop conveying anything other than this, especially to our children, and confusing them. And so, no, we very much used the words of Pope Francis himself to help us.
Well, to your way of thinking, did it require courage to do this? Because I'll tell you what, you can get thrown off of Twitter and Facebook, and you can become a pariah among all the respectable media if you say basic truths about human sexuality these days. Did that concern you at all?
Well, when I was ordained a priest, I promised the Lord, Lord, I'll be able. I'll suffer for you. I'll do whatever I can. I'll suffer for you. But I never thought that suffering would come, because of saying that God created us a man or a woman. And to answer your question, I certainly knew that because if you say what is true in the areas of sexuality or whatever, the backlash is often fierce. We anticipated that, and we certainly, especially on social media, was the recipient of some very harsh comments and false labeling and a real misunderstanding. But it's for all of us, all your listeners. They understand that. They know that in the workplace, in their own communities, sometimes even their own families, that there is a price to pay sometimes for speaking the truth, even as you speak it in love and with compassion. So yes, we knew that would happen. But I would say overall, within my diocese and even beyond, we have received a very favorable response of people basically saying, Bishop, I always believed that God created us man or woman, and there's something beautiful about that. But when I get when I have to defend that in the workplace or whatever, and get somewhat aggressively in a discussion with people, I just didn't have that language, those principles or foundations that I could articulate in a sound way. And this document gives me that solid ground. So that's why we say it's a catechetical resource, to give people the language they know to communicate what they know. They know it's true. Right. So we just wanted to give them the language to communicate.
So you say the situation, meaning this situation of the current kind of gender ideology out there, presents a serious challenge for all members of the church because it presents a view of the human person contrary to the truth. Can you just elaborate a bit on what is contrary to the truth in the gender ideology?
Well, I mean, there's accommodations. So if people are asking you to accept what is not true, then it goes to the next step and then please accommodate that. And so you'll see that playing out in schools and in the policies, that you are to call me by this name or use this pronoun, right, or allow me to use this locker room or to play in this sport. So you're being asked to accommodate that which is not true. And we're saying in our church, in our schools, we will not do that because it's not true. And if we love you and we want to lead you on a path that doesn't lead to more emotional distress and destruction, we want to guide you in the truth. Well, then our principles and how we act will reflect that too.
Bishop Michael Burbidge is our guest. The document, A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. If you have questions for the bishop, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Another thing that I very much appreciated in this document, Bishop, is the sense that you focused on the positive view of human sexuality that's inherent in Christianity, that Christianity presents a wholesome and positive view of Christian sexuality. And that, I think, is often not said. In our arguments here and there, whether we're having them on social media or wherever, they're the political arguments, we don't go back to the basics and say, wait a second, this is a beautiful view of human sexuality. It's true, and you're going to be happier if you accept it.
Right, exactly. And to celebrate God's infinite plan for us, and that beautiful truth that it is in the creation of man and woman that is also leads to life itself, the creation of life, right? That's how God made us, man and woman. What's one of the beautiful fruits of that in the sacred union of man and woman, in the marriage bond, that the fruitful love, from that comes life itself. And that's God's plan for us. So it's a beautiful truth to celebrate. Yeah, and it's
one of the things that we have noticed is that as we move down this, many people have taken note of this, move down this gender ideology. This is presenting real gross injustices. Like if you connect to a belief system that's not rooted in the truth, you have to defend that using unjust means. There's no other way to do it. And so justice, in other words, is rooted in the truth, and injustice is the consequence of believing lies or promoting lies. Certainly, we see this in women being disenfranchised from their own womanhood, a woman's bathroom not being what it was before, or a woman's athletic department not being what it was before for women. But I was struck also that about the young people who present with, I'm a boy, not a girl, or I'm a girl, not a boy, are being medically mistreated. And you address that a little bit in the letter.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And because that is an extreme of that, because of this falsehood that my emotional or psychological identity not matching with, who I am physically, biologically, every part of my DNA tells me who I am. To identify as something other than that, and then to seek, surgical procedures or medical applications to change that, it is just, as you mentioned, is in itself can cause, emotional, even greater distress. And much research, and again, if you look at the endnotes in the document, the research clearly shows that so often and so sadly, years and years later, people who at a younger age and maybe not thoroughly thought this out and were permitted and encouraged to do so by fact, they were saying, why would you let me do this?
Yes, right.
Look what happened. I didn't know at that age or whatever. And so there's a whole section talking to parents about, that there is a path other than you love your child and you want to support your child in every way possible, of course, but that necessarily means that you don't do so by implementing procedures that are buying into that which is false, and because in the end it's that lack of clarity that really is causing more distress in the life of their children. So it's a sensitive area. I hope the Section 2 parents is helpful, as a resource of how to have that conversation.
A catechesis on the human person and gender ideology came out this summer from Bishop Michael Burbridge of the Arlington Diocese here in the United States. Lots of folks on the line ready to talk with you, Bishop. We have to take a quick break, and we'll do that. There are a couple lines still open. If you have a question or comment you'd like to share with the Bishop, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Do you have a question but prefer to ask it privately? Catholic Questions can help. Go to CatholicQuestions.com to ask your question online, email us, drop us a letter, or give us a call. Longtime Catholic Answers Live apologist and author Jim Blackburn or another Catholic Questions apologist will be happy to assist you. Catholic Questions proudly supports Catholic Answers Live, so visit us at CatholicQuestions.com today. That's CatholicQuestions.com.
You remember Rocky Balboa? If somebody said, "Yo, Rocky, man, you the Rock," like you would have caught the rather cheesy verbal play on words quite easily. And that's exactly what Jesus does. So he uses the word Petra in Greek as feminine. He masculinizes it, Petros, to make it refer to a masculine person. And so it's as if Jesus said, "Yo, Rocky, you the Rock."
Called to Communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, our guest. Darren, how can they want me to do commerce while we have Bishop Burbidge on with us? Like, they want me to say there's a store-wide sale at shop.catholic.com. Everything's on sale, 25% off, up to 50% off at shop.catholic.com. I can't say that while the bishop's here. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that. Excuse me, Bishop Burbidge. I apologize. They wanted me to read an ad while we have you, Darren. I just can't do it.
You have to do that. That's no problem on my end.
Okay, fair
We want
enough.
to keep you guys in business.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your understanding, Bishop. 888-318-7884 is our number here. As I said, we have some folks who'd like to talk with the bishop about the document. I want to keep letting people know the name of the document. You can get it by just going to the website of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia. It's called A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology, and it is aptly named because that's exactly what it is. It's just a catechesis, walks it through what the church teaches, gives you some of what the world teaches, and explains to you how you deal with the what is, I think is fair to say, is a conflict between the two of those things. Bishop, you okay if we go to some phone calls?
That'd be great. Sure.
All right, let's start
Sure.
with Darren. Can you help me with the phone bank? Martin in Lubbock, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. You are first up with Bishop Michael Burbidge. Thank you for your call, Martin. Go ahead with your question.
Hello, Bishop. How are you today?
Doing well, Martin. Thank you.
Just wanted to have a question, comment. How did this all get started, and how did everyone get so involved and confused?
Fair enough, Martin. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Martin, and I'm sure the factors are endless. But I think that certainly it begins, I think, with the understanding of human life itself. That is a precious gift. That we have a Creator who has given us life. Who has a plan for us, who has created us man and woman, the dignity of the human person, respecting that, all that God has given us, our gender, our gifts, our talents, our weaknesses, whatever. And then certainly of a relativism where, because I think so, or because I think it's true, then that means it's true. And you should accept that. Just a giving, a kind of a distancing from philosophical and theological foundations and principles that guide us. And so I think that, like in any area, it's important for us maybe to get to what that real issue is. We're talking about this, but we're talking to a person, and what are the issues? What are the real issues behind this particular point that you're in right now? So I think it's unfortunate we just live in a world because if I say it's true and we dismiss reality and we're supposed to accept that. And thank God we're in a church, members of a Catholic church that is based on the truth with sound theological, philosophical teachings that can apply to all the moral issues that we face.
Martin, thank you. I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you very, very much. I mean, in thinking about Martin's question, I'm wondering if you had the impression, I think that many people have, that this happened very quickly. I mean, it didn't, even 10 years ago, you weren't obligated in public life to kind of, say yes to all these things. And now suddenly this radical change is upon us. Were you struck by how fast it all happened?
Very much so, but not in some ways not surprised, because that's what happens, is that once you begin denying basic realities about the human person, about sexuality. If you take one step this way, and then it's going to go to the extreme. And I think now we really have reached an extreme. And but it begins slowly. It begins chipping away, and then but you can see as you're doing it, you can see the path it's heading. And that's why we thought we have reached a point where we really have to speak out clearly and compassionately, but in bold truth.
Yes.
It's the only way we're going to reverse the situation.
Again, Martin, thank you very much for the call. Going to go to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Mark, listening on Divine Mercy Radio in Chapel Hill. Thank you so much for your call. Mark, go ahead with your question for Bishop Michael Burbidge.
It's great to chat with you again, Reverend Burbidge.
I heard Chapel Hill reminded my former diocese. Hello to everyone in Chapel Hill,
right.
Mark.
That's right. It's sort of with a couple relatives in our family that have transitioned to be in the opposite sex, and it seems like everyone in the family embracing it, where seems like the only one that just says something's just not right here. It's sort of on how, maybe even what's the first question I would even talk to my parents about or something to find out how to try to navigate all this.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Mark. I think that families or extended families more and more are able to say that this is a reality in my own family. Whether it's a sibling or a cousin or a second cousin or whatever. So it is definitely hitting home. So one thing that we certainly talk about in this document is that we always want to reaffirm that that person we're sitting next to is loved by God, is a child of God, and we respect that person and love that person as our family member, as a friend, and nothing would change that. But yet, in a relationship that is loving, there has to be that mutual acceptance of dialogue. So, someone who loves you should not be asking you, to prove your love by saying something that and believe is not true. You can't do that if you love them. And so, you reaffirm your care for them, that your willingness to support them in any way possible. But you have to stand faithful to what you know and believe is true. And I think it's very, very possible to do that without denying your love for someone. I mean, it ends up that you disagree, you're on different pages here, but you still can continue to love a family member and be available. And sometimes your willingness to just listen to the person compassionately, your steady, contact with them. You never know where that will lead. One day it may be you who never wavered. You may be the person that family comes back to and say, you were right. Can I talk to you? Maybe you can help me with this. So just be true to yourself and loving to the person in the family who may be going through this stress.
Okay, Mark?
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bishop,
Mark.
Did you get any pushback from people who would complain in this way, like, well, why don't you just leave these people alone? Let them do what they want to do. You do what you want to do. I wonder so how do you respond to that?
That was definitely that was definitely some of the pushback we received. And basically with Sai, what you were saying earlier, that this kind of issue impacts all of us. Because if you're asking for these accommodations, this is going to have impact on all the faithful. that I shepherd, not just the person going through this. So, I hear from teachers, who are Catholics who teach in public schools, and they tell me, some of the things that they are required to accommodate, to allow, to keep from parents, and to be exactly the opposite of the person they are, and why they chose teaching in the beginning.
Yes.
So it's impacting all of us. It's just not dealing with the person going through this. So I said, no, I'm shepherd, I'm bishop, father to all people, and that's why we spoke out.
Oh, we like hearing a bishop talk that way. We'll take a very quick break, and we'll be right back with more conversation with Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Tomorrow on More to Life, Getting Over Guilt.
We'll help you combat the guilt that weighs you down.
That's tomorrow on More to Life. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Your calls and questions welcome for our guest, Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Arlington Diocese in Virginia. We're talking about his document, A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. And a lot of times the way it works around here at Catholic Answers is a document from the church comes out, somebody sends it around to all of us and says, what do you think? And I have to say the take on A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology was, no one has done it better. I mean, there was a sense of relief, like, oh, there it is. Well, that's the document we've been looking for. So we were very grateful for it, Bishop. Its tone was charitable but clear, and too many times we choose between one of those two, and I didn't think you made the choice. You both clear and charitable.
Thank you so much. That was our goal.
More folks on the line ready to ask their questions. Let me just see who we've got here. We're going to Patrick in Seattle, Washington, listening on the Catholic Answers app. Patrick, we're very grateful for your call. Go ahead with your question for Bishop Michael Burbidge.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We can, Patrick.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. So, Your Excellency, I was wondering if you would agree with me in that perhaps one way to talk to people who embrace this gender ideology would be to recognize their feelings. Because I've noticed a lot of times people who embrace this lead with their emotions, and if you were to approach their position from a sense of logic or philosophy, they immediately get really defensive and say, well, you don't understand my feelings. And it's like, well, okay, but so would you think that perhaps recognizing their feelings and somehow utilizing that to take away the invective is an appropriate way to try and reach these people and lead them to the truth?
Patrick, I think it's a very compassionate, a very pastoral, a very effective way of engaging. You know, as you mentioned, if you just begin with here's the logic, here's the rationale, here's the philosophical and theological and biological principles, so therefore you must understand. You're right. We would probably not be real successful in bringing about, God willing, some sort of transformation in a sense of grasping the truth. So I think we always do well, and I think Pope Francis teaches us this very, very clearly. We always do well by encountering, right? So that is by, let me listen, tell me, what is it that you are experiencing? What is it that is causing you at this certain point to be at this stage, and help me to understand. Tell me your story, And I think that you're right, that at least, God willing, may open a door for you to have a voice that someone might be willing to listen to. If we put someone immediately on the defensive, then it's very unlikely that we're going to have a conversation or that we will even be heard. So I think, yes, absolutely. I think what you said is a very good, I think it's very good pastoral theology. So, yes.
Okay, Patrick?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the call. Lots and lots of calls now. Every line full at the moment, so we will keep moving. Bishop Michael Burbidge from the Diocese of Arlington in Virginia is our guest, and we're talking about the gender ideology because he wrote a beautiful catechesis on the gender ideology. We go now all the way down to Austin, Texas. Josh in Austin, listening on the Catholic Answers app. Josh, go ahead with your question for Bishop Burbidge.
Hi, Your Excellency. I'm a nursing student down here in Austin, and something that I'm having to confront lately is the idea that I'm going to, as hopefully a future critical care nurse, address patients and family who identify as transgender. And one of the most important things at the core of our care is building trust and being impartial and kind of not paying attention to the state of the person, but to heal them and take care of them and let them continue on their lives, whatever that may be, whatever our position, criminal or otherwise. And how is the best way for me to approach this without damaging that trust with the patient and without hopefully endangering my livelihood to be able to take care of my wife and my child?
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Thank you for your beautiful vocation and ministry. Certainly, all of us are so grateful to our nurses and physician assistants and those in the medical profession, and how heroic all of you have been, especially in this past year and a half. So thank you for your ministry of being an instrument of the Lord's healing love. And that is a reality, because I said at the beginning of the show that this has impact in the legal world, impact in the educational world, and certainly has impact in your world, the medical world. And you are there to heal. You are there to bring about healing as God's instrument through the medical process. And there is nothing that we would see in a procedure that reverses the way God created a person that will bring about healing and would bring about health mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I know that for people in your profession, people in education and things like that, it does come at a critical point where you have to prayerfully discern, your ability to participate in a institution that promotes that and calls it healing, and calls it healing, because that it is not that. And if you know that and that's what you believe, then you have to prayerfully discern if that is the type of institution in which your talents and your gifts can be best served. So this is the problem when we are asked to, and sometimes forced to and mandated to accommodate what we know not to be true. It has these kind of consequences on livelihood and supporting the family. And that's why we have to be a strong voice here and really be steadfast in saying that we cannot be mandated and forced to do what we in conscience do not believe. And so I know it's a very difficult and challenging situation, but that's the path we're headed. This idea,
Yeah, it's striking, Bishop and Josh, how the culture of tolerance just seems to want to fire everybody. I mean, it wants to fire pharmacists because they won't prescribe certain chemicals, want to fire nurses and doctors because they won't go along with the transgender thing. We'll fire cops and firemen because they don't get a vaccination. I mean, everybody's got to get fired in this culture of tolerance. So welcome to that world. Josh, I'm going to leave it there because there are quite a few others who would like to talk with Bishop Burbidge from the Diocese of Arlington in Virginia and in Colorado, listening on EWTN. You are up next. Ann, go ahead with your question for Bishop Burbidge.
Thank you very much for taking my call. I'll just try to summarize this quickly. My sons, who are seniors in high school, have a classmate who started last year during COVID to decide that he is no longer a he and a she, and has a new she name, and expects all his classmates to call him by his new name. And it's my sons refuse to do that, and it's created quite a bit of difficulty. But it appears too that the mom is supporting this child in his change of decision making, and the school seems to be accommodating it significantly through charter school. And I'm trying to decide, and this is my question for you: who should I start with? The mom, the parents, the school? Where do you start to try to make the correction?
Yeah. Thank you, Ann. Thanks for that question. It's a good question. I mean, I think that I think the good conversation is to reaffirm your sons. I mean, I'm sure it's a challenge for them. That their friend. That they're friends, but they're being asked by their friend to do something that they know is not true, and they don't want to reaffirm an error because they care about their friends. So certainly begin by reassuring that their sons are certainly being, I think, a good friend, and being very supportive. And as long as they reaffirm that they're there to help and support him, but not to compromise who they are and what they believe. I think we're learning across the country that a good place to have these conversations is with school boards and those who are entrusted with the formation of young people who are enacting policies and procedures and forcing them upon teachers and other students. That our voices have to be heard as parents. And it's sad, as we see throughout our country, certainly in my area, where parents are being asked to not to be part of that process and are, looked down upon because they don't want an indoctrination of their children that is anything but true. So I think, your voice has to be really with your own sons, reaffirming them, and also, don't get involved in the in the community itself and in these schools that are having such a an influence, not always in a positive way, upon our students. So that's what I would suggest.
Ann, thanks. We're a little late for a break, so we're going to take that break. All the lines full, so we'll do as many calls as we can for Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Many people are confused as to what news program to listen to. One news station promotes one thing, while another says the opposite. That's where Catholic Radio comes in. This is Donetta Robin of Divine Mercy Radio in Hayes, Kansas. Be assured that Catholic Radio will give you the news from a Catholic perspective and without bias. Be informed today. Tune in to Catholic Radio.
The world needs EWTN Catholic Radio, now more than ever.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Earlier this year, a beautiful catechesis on human sexuality came out from Bishop Michael Burbidge in the Diocese of Arlington in Virginia. It's called A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology. We are discussing that document, and your calls are welcome, 888-318-7884. I will warn you that the lines have been quite full, so we'll do our very best to get you on. Next up with a question, I don't know Virginia well, so I don't know if Virginia Beach is in the Diocese of Arlington, but Cyrus, it is?
It's that other diocese, Richmond.
Oh, it's that other diocese. Okay. So, all right. Well, Cyrus, you're still welcome here, even though you come from a lesser diocese. No, that's my words, not the bishop's. Go ahead, Cyrus, with your question for Bishop Burbidge. Oh, hang on. I pushed the wrong button. Go ahead, Cyrus.
Thank you. My question is actually embarrassingly similar to the last caller's, but I'll try to make it more brief. So I was listening, and I was curious about one of the things the bishop said. I was curious as to what would be a good litmus test for a Catholic teacher at a public school who is compelled to teach gender ideology. My uncle had to deal with this. He's a Southern Baptist, and he recently had to make that judgment call at a school he was teaching for like 25 years. He had to endure that compulsory education. So I'm just curious how much it would take before a good Catholic would have to leave out of moral hygiene from a school that they're accustomed to teaching at because of that.
Yeah, thanks, Cyrus. And only kidding about the Diocese of Richmond. It's a beautiful diocese, and we work very closely together, Bishop Nestout and I. Yeah, I mean, I think, Cyrus, sadly, and I do talk to a number of parishioners in my diocese who are teachers in public school, and this is a reality. And sadly, I do think that it's going to come to a point for some of them where they will have to make that decision, even though they've been, such a part of a school or community for so long. But I do think that it should begin with, not that, oh, you're forcing me to do this, I quit. I don't think that's the way it should go. But I think every faculty member has a right and represented, I'm sure by faculty councils or things like that, to engage the administration and say, this I cannot do, and here are the reasons. I'm willing to follow, this part when it comes to the curriculum and all those kind of things. But for me to indoctrinate or to, impose literally is what's being asked, impose untruths to my students, is something that is not acceptable as a long-standing, respected faculty member. We have to debate this as a faculty. We have to debate this as an administration. And I'm sure that if you're that one person who initiates that conversation, that person may find out, well, guess what? There's 10, 20 other teachers who feel the same way I do. And I'm not the only one thinking this way, although I'm making it feel like I'm the odd person out here. So it would probably take that one person to step up and begin to see that, within that faculty, even people who may not agree with the principal may say, well, listen, if he or she doesn't feel that way, I'm going to support what's being said here, because what's next? What are you going to ask me to do? And so a lot of times it's going to take that one person to step up and say, no, I can't do that. Like any other issue in our school, we have a right to debate and to discuss it as a faculty and as administration, and I'm asking for that opportunity.
Okay, Cyrus?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In some ways, that's the harder course, Bishop. Sometimes it's easier just to slink away and not engage in the conversation. But it does seem to me we have to have these conversations. There have to be people who just say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right. And again, I think the support is there. Many people, know this to be true. They know it. It's in their being. We understand this is the truth. But we have to be careful because that's what they want us to be silent. The opposition to what we are talking about here tonight, which is true, the opposition wants us to be silent.
Yeah.
And so what they'll do is that they'll make you, feel that if you say something like this, that you're dealing with hatred or discrimination or, all these kind of false labeling. Well, none of us want to be seen that way, so I'm not going to say anything. Well, that's a strategy, but we can't let strategy work.
Fair enough, Bishop, and then your letter is a big part of that. I think it's just speaking the truth and reminding people of it and letting the chips fall where they may.
That's right.
All right, let's go to Omaha, Nebraska. Tom in Omaha, listening on KVSS. That's Spirit Catholic Radio. Tom, thank you so much for your call. Go ahead with your question for Bishop Burbidge.
Thank you. There's one way to stop this real quick, in my opinion, and that's to start suing the doctors that do this. Get someone who's had all this surgery and everything when they're 16, 17, whatever, and now they're 30 and they're had attempted suicide and they're just miserable. Well, let's sue the doctor. I think if that got started, it'd probably be the end of these surgeries.
Bishop?
Yeah, Tom, I don't know, the legal realm and how best to deal with that legally. But I think what you're highlighting is true, and it's something that we refer to in our document with the research that shows that these kind of medical procedures and have caused great emotional stress. The research points to the fact that it's the end result is often very, very anything but helpful, life-giving, but exactly the opposite. So I think we should, in medical field and in other worlds, use the research, and hopefully that will help guide people's decisions.
Tom, thanks very, very much. That is one thing in this catechesis that you wrote, a catechesis on the human person and gender ideology. You were not shy about using the science and footnoting it. Was that important to you to make clear that that you're not anti-scientific or anti anybody or anything in asserting that our gender is not as a negotiable part of ourselves?
Right, exactly. And that was very, very important to us. And that's why we engaged, this was a team effort. And so we engaged a lot of experts from various fields in bioethics and theology and science, which, as a church, we're not opposed to. And in fact, in a case like this, it absolutely supports that which we believe. So that's why we referred to much of that research.
Again, Bishop Michael Burbidge is our guest. A Catechesis on the Human Person and Gender Ideology is the letter. You can find it at the website of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia. Go one at a time, though. Don't crash the server or something, all right? One at a time. Go line up and get your copy of it. This teaching on gender ideology, as we talked about it at the beginning, is very much in sync with what Pope Francis has said quite forcefully many, many times. How do you, Bishop, because you've made this point and the Pope has made this point, and I think even Jesus made this point, that there is this awful ideology which is creating so much injustice, the most horrifying of it towards children, but also towards vulnerable people of all sorts. How do we welcome the person who says, I'm a man when in fact this person is a woman, or I'm a woman when in fact this person is a man, and do that while still not stooping to the level really of pandering and rejecting the truth?
Right, and you can say what you agree upon, and we agree upon that you are a child of God. We agree that, and you are loved by God, and you are, and therefore you have a dignity as a human person, which I respect and uphold, and we should love each other that way. But it's out of love that I need to speak to you in truth. I always say, charity requires clarity, and that's what we try to do. But if we can just have that conversation, understanding that you are a child of God, and the church, we say this very clearly in the document, is that the church accompanies, embraces, wants to walk with you through this process, but to lead you to that which is real, that which is life-giving, that which makes you more the person God created you to be. That's the path we want to lead you in. But we want to walk with you, and if we're not there yet, we're not going to give up. We're going to continue walking with you, and we're going to be there, and we're going to be there when you need us.
And do you find that that's the case in parishes, that people are? I mean, I don't want to share my experience with you, but are we Catholics willing to, at the parish level, are the ministers there, the priests, the laity, ready to walk with people, not reject people based on this, but love and continue to be clear?
I see that throughout our diocese, and I'm sure it's throughout the church. Is that it's like any issue. We're complicated, right? We're complicated. Yeah. We're body, we're soul, we're spirit. We're dealing with physical, spiritual, emotional lives, and whatever that area in our lives that is causing us distress or disorientation or disruption in our lives. I really do see our priests and lay faithful who want to be there, and be the ministers of that which will bring healing. So there's so much goodness out there, and that goes for all people without exception.
Our guest has been Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia. Bishop, just a few seconds left. May we have your blessing before we go?
Yeah, and thank you, Cy. Thank you and everyone, your colleagues, for all that you do.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful ministry also, and we really thank you for being messengers of the Lord, of the truth, and of the gospel. And I ask God to bless you and all your listeners and to keep you all safe and healthy and under His care. God bless you all.
Oh, thank you so much, Bishop. We'll come back in a minute with Tim Staples. We'll do an open forum. Thanks, everybody who's called. Sorry we weren't able to get to every single one, but we did the best we could. Bishop Michael Burbidge, our guest. Thanks. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Big letdown for the second hour, going from a bishop all the way down to Tim Staples.
That's right.
Tim Staples, apologist here at Catholic Answers, of course. And this is how I wanted to introduce you, and I forgot to do it. The Tyson Fury of Catholic apologists.
Yes.
After the big win on Saturday night.
I wish I was the Tyson Fury of apologists. Unbeatable.
Yeah, unbeatable. That's right. I haven't seen you beaten yet. It's open forum this hour with Tim. You can ask him anything you want. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. Already people, let me look at the lines. It seems like it's already filling up. Yeah, already a lot of people on the line for you.
Right on, brother.
A few lines open. 3 lines open if you want to
But I got to ask you first.
Yes.
How did you like one of my favorite bishops in Michael Burbidge?
I really enjoyed the conversation with him. I really liked him.
For those who don't know, he was the Dean of Men when I was at St. Charles Borromeo, and he was beloved by everyone, even though, he was the guy that had to discipline you.
Yeah.
He was such a loving guy, but you always knew there was no compromise with him. He was very pastoral and loving, but man, when it came to the truth, there was no compromise. I think that's just what you want in a bishop.
Yeah, and that's probably why this document was so well done from him. It was extremely Catholic, extremely charitable, but there was no
you don't get hubris
dancing around
from this man. Yeah, and there's no. He's not the guy that's going to use inflammatory language.
Right.
He says the truth. And let's face it, the truth is inflammatory enough.
Nowadays
right?
it is,
We don't need to add to it with purposefully inflammatory language. And you don't get that from him.
Well, I mentioned to him that I thought he used much gentler language about transgenderism than Pope Francis, and he was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, Pope Francis,
demonic."
He goes, he uses the language of the people.
He does, and it's interesting because Pope Francis, in some ways, he can get away with it because everybody knows that Francis loves people, and he's not interested in causing controversy. He is really interested in the truth, and he speaks just really bluntly. It doesn't matter if he's talking to people on the quote-unquote left or on the right.
No, he just speaks bluntly.
He speaks bluntly from the heart, but it's a heart of love.
Yeah, and that's why people, even people that you would think wouldn't love a guy who says abortion is hiring a hitman, or, or the
transgender is demonic.
Is demonic, yeah, right. Like,
yes.
If Pope Benedict said that, he'd say the exact same thing, and they'd be all over him. Yeah. All right, wait, do you want to take some calls, or should we just hang out? Okay, all right, we'll take some calls.
Yes.
Anonymous in Texas, listening on Ave Maria Radio. Anonymous, we're glad to have you. You start us off. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hi, I'd like to say first off, first-time listener, or first-time caller, long-time listener, rather.
It's better than first-time listener, long-time caller. That's way better.
That's right. So what's happening, Anonymous?
I just had a question in regards to the recent executive order issued by Joe Biden.
Right.
How would it be? Would it be conflicting in the teachings of the Catechism of the Catholic Church for employers to mandate the vaccine to their employees?
Oh, that one, because I wasn't sure which executive order we were on about, because there was one about abortion recently, and
right.
But okay.
On the federal level, yes, and it seems that Joe Biden has gone crazy with power. We've never seen that before, have we? In government in general, or in the United States. But yeah, this is quite troubling, and it's actually the CDF, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, that issued a very concise and well-written declaration on this point, that an individual ought not to be coerced into taking a vaccine. And what's amazing to me, Anonymous, is that we live in a culture that has this inane sort of my body, my choice mantra, which is incoherent when you're talking about abortion. And of course, that's why that mantra was created, because of course the baby is not the mother's body. I remember hearing years ago, Kathy Ireland, of all people, the famous model from years back.
No. She's a supermodel.
Yeah, supermodel.
Don't say model to a
That's right,
supermodel.
not just model, supermodel.
Come on.
But she was interviewed, I believe it was on Larry King many years ago, and I remember her saying, if the baby has a penis,
How's that my body?
That is not the mother's body, is it? Right? And it was so simply
She's
done.
my favorite supermodel now.
That's right. So we're not talking about, and yet the mantra, my body, my choice, which again is incoherent with regard to abortion, but it certainly is coherent with regard to a mandated vaccine. If you believe in the vaccine, and I tell you, I got the vaccine, but I also respect people who say no to the vaccine. But wouldn't that apply here, Anonymous? And of course, in answer to your question, the church through the CDF has said that this ought not to be mandated. It is wrong to mandate this. But here, can I toss out something a little bit crazy here, Anonymous? I would suggest to our government, why not present your argument? Why people should get the vaccine and win people over in the realm of ideas. I thought that's what a democracy was all about, Cy Kellett. But obviously that's not the case because we have a power-hungry government, unfortunately, that just seems to want to dominate us in all areas of our lives. And so the bottom line is, whether you believe in the vaccine or not, I know our Holy Father has called it a duty, right? I'm not sure I agree with him on that duty part. Hey, I got the vaccine. I weighed the evidence as I read it and said, you know what? I'm not going to miss out, for example, on some international trips when I thought that the risk was worth benefit to risk, weighing benefit to risk. And so, again, to answer your question, vaccine mandates contradict the clear teaching of the CDF that just came out, right, a couple of months ago, Cy, as I recall. But let's face it. Unfortunately, we have a president who is quote unquote Catholic. He's baptized, confirmed, but he doesn't think much of the teachings of the Catholic Church.
Well, the Archbishop for the military said recently made the point you can't mandate that someone get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And he's the Archbishop for the military.
Yeah, they're mandating the vaccine.
Yeah, right.
Of course you can, but you can't do it licitly. It is.
Well, sure, you have power.
Of course they have the power. But you're talking about invading someone's body here. The old saying is, your freedom ends at the tip of my nose. How about the skin, right? Your freedom doesn't involve sticking that thing. And especially, look at this situation where you have medical doctors that are on both sides of the issue. You have real problems with forcing children now, which a lot of scientists are saying is just incoherent, forcing children. So there are a lot of questions, Anonymous, and I thank God for the CDF that so clearly declared the truth here.
Austin, thanks for the call. Thanks very, very much. One other disturbing thing, we got to go to a break, and I'll go to the break, but I actually hear people saying things like, well, if you don't get the vaccine and then you get COVID, then the hospital shouldn't treat you.
Yeah, that's scary, isn't it?
That has nothing to do with what a hospital is for. That.
Yeah, I mean, that's like saying the church, if you have illegal aliens, quote unquote, come over the border, well, then by golly, the church better not minister to those people, right?
Yeah.
Of course the church is going to
minister.
That's
what a church is for. That's what a hospital is for.
And a hospital is to minister to people. Oh, let's see. Where's your card? You're dying? Forget it. Stay out in the street. I mean, that's when you know, as a culture, we've lost our collective minds, when you start being reduced to that. You got it? Out in the street, die. My goodness.
What if the paramedics took that? Well, you were riding a motorcycle. Sorry, we're not taking you in. Or you were on a skateboard. I mean, you just cannot have that. Well, anyways, I guess you can have it.
We need to just continuously, and that's what we're about here at Catholic Answers, present the truth to people. We've got to get our thoughts in line, think clearly, present the teaching of the church, and common sense, Zion, we can change this generation. We really can.
All right, we'll take our quick break, and we'll be right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Bishop Chad Zielinski from the Diocese of Fairbanks of Northern Alaska, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Reason for hope. Pope Francis sends a message ahead of World Youth Day. Consumed by lava. A Spanish church falls victim to a volcano. Protecting life. Republicans push back against Democrats who want to expand abortion.
Clear, concise, Catholic. EWTN News Nightly. Tonight, 9 Eastern on EWTN Television and Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Always a pleasure to talk with Tim Staples at the breaks. Says things that I have to stop laughing before I get on the microphone. We're going to Cincinnati now. Ethan in Cincinnati watching on YouTube. Glad to have you, Ethan. Go ahead with your question.
Oh, hello. Hello, Tim Staples. God bless, man. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, I am doing well. God is good. What's on your mind, Ethan?
So I was talking to a radical traditionalist, like a borderline sedevacantist.
Okay.
And they were giving, basically, they were trying to say that the Novus Ordo was, that it did have the Blessed Eucharist, and that it is licit, but he said that it's spiritually harmful. And what he tried to say to justify this is he tried to compare the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass to the sacrifices of Cain and Abel. Because know how Abel, like, for no reason we can really discern, God chose Abel's sacrifice over Cain.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to make this argument where he tried to connect the two. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But, I think at the core of the discussion, when you're talking about folks like that are borderline sedevacantist, as you said, I find it interesting that he even says that it's quote-unquote licit or even valid. But he seems to be, he's contradicting himself, because you can't say it's licit one moment and then say it's spiritually harmful, and it is like the difference between the sacrifices of Abel versus Cain. Which one would be the sacrifice of Cain, I wonder? So obviously that sacrifice was rejected by God. That's the whole point of the story. So I think your friend is a little bit incoherent in what he is saying. But to cut through that, to get to the core of things here, I think there is a profound lack of faith at the core of these various movements that, either claim that the Mass of St. Paul VI is illicit or it's invalid or whatever. And so, Ethan, I believe the first thing we need to do is exhibit a life of vivified faith in our lives, and the joy of the Lord that comes from serving God and being in submission to his vicar on this earth, right? And that goes a long way toward ministering to people. I just went to confession today, and I tell you, when I receive sacraments in the church, I don't know about you, Si, but it just fires. It just tends to fire me up, whether it's Sunday Mass or receiving the sacrament of confession or daily Mass. Man, we've got a powerful reality in the real presence of our Lord in the Eucharist, which your friend, praise be to God, acknowledges we do have the real presence in the Eucharist. So that's a real plus there, that he acknowledges that. So, there's no spiritual harm coming in receiving the God who created the universe into your body. But now, to take it a step further, though, when I talk about that loss of faith, well, we understand as Catholic Christians, and in fact, I have a course I just put together on defending the church, which is available at our Catholic Answers School of Apologetics. And I have a section in there on the holiness of the church. And there's a beautiful and ancient teaching of the church that goes something like this. Because of the mark of holiness, we can know as Catholic Christians that everything the church does in her universal decrees or in her decrees concerning an entire rite of the church, whether it's the Roman rite or the Byzantine rite, we can know, Si, that the church will never lead us astray. Because if she did, she would not be holy. Si, do you know any holy people that lead people away from Jesus? No, you don't. You know why? Because it's only in as much as they're not holy that they're going to lead people away from Jesus. Holiness in the lives of individuals leads people to Jesus. Well, the church is holy absolutely and indefectibly. And one of the many ways, of course, this is revealed in the lives of the saints in every generation for 2,000 years, heroic virtue, miracles and such in the lives of the saints. But it's also, a lot of people forget this, Ethan and Si, in the fact that the church for 2,000 years and all that she has done, as I said before, she has led the world to Jesus and to holiness. Now, for those who are going to tell me that, well, that all stopped in 1969, when the church promulgated, now, mind you, when you're talking about the Roman rite of the Catholic Church, you're talking about 1.2 billion Catholics of the roughly 1.4 or 1.5 billion. 1.2 billion happen to be Roman rite. To say that in 1969, the church led 1.2 billion souls into harm and is hurting them is, my friend, that is a sign of a profound loss of faith. In fact, the Catholic Church is the one holy Catholic and apostolic faith. So right from the start, we can say that's bogus, because we know Jesus said, I will build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. If the church is leading the world into sin, the gates of hell have won. Right? And we are of all men most miserable. So that's absurd. But then the only other thing I would say, and forgive me for going so long, Ethan, this one kind of gets me fired up a little bit, is look at the actual Mass as it exists, the four Eucharistic prayers that are, to me, the fourth Eucharistic prayer is absolutely beautiful. It is profound. You have the first Eucharistic prayer, which is basically the Roman canon from the Council of Trent, that still exists in substance in the church. And you have the ancient second Eucharistic prayer. I mean, there are so many improvements. Now, I would argue that there is a lot of beauty, that's an understatement, in the 1962 Roman Missal, to be sure. Of course, it was promulgated by the church, right? Of course, it's beautiful and powerful and has, I would argue, some advantages over the Reforms. But there are so many ways in which the Reforms improved over the 62 Missal as well. I think if people would really read and meditate upon and seek to understand what it is the church has done in the Reform, there would be a lot more of that joy with regard to the Mass in general that I spoke about earlier. So, Ethan, that's the way I'd get started anyway.
Thanks, Ethan. I'm going to keep moving because lots of folks on the line. It's open forum. Tim Staples is our guest, and we go down to Tampa, Florida now, watching on YouTube. Bill in Tampa, Florida. Go ahead with your question, Bill.
Hi, Tim. You're one of God's stars, and I'm so honored to be talking to you.
Oh, thank you, brother. What's on your mind?
All right. Well, we know that God's unchanging, and his revelation and man's understanding of God changed over time.
Yes.
However, we, and I mean myself and you guys at Catholic Answers, often deal with questions about the Old Testament God versus New Testament Jesus.
Yeah.
So my question is, where in the Old Testament can I find evidence of New Testament Jesus, not prophecies, but examples of a loving, forgiving God?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I do think it's a popular misnomer, and it goes back a long way. As you may know, there was a heretic in the 2nd century by the name of Marcion who thought that the Old and New Testament were so radically different that he argued there were two different gods, or there's kind of a God of the New Testament and a demiurge of the Old Testament. But in fact, what I would argue is you see a God of mercy and justice in the Old Testament and mercy and justice in the New. Now, is there a fuller revelation of God? Absolutely there is. A fuller revelation of God as love within his inner life? Absolutely. We see that revealed in the Trinity. So that's why in the New Testament alone, you're going to find 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, God is love, because he wasn't known as love until he's revealed in the Trinity. Because, you can't have, God, think about it, from all eternity, if he's in absolute solitude, who was there to love, Si? It's only in the inner life of the Blessed Trinity that we see the Father eternally loving the Son loving the Father, Father and Son loving the Holy Spirit loving the Father and the Son. So there is newness of revelation and a fuller revelation. But I would argue, go back to, the Psalms, like Psalm 136 and Psalm 118. My goodness, the whole of those two Psalms is all about the steadfast love of the Lord never changes. The mercy of the Lord is forever and ever. We see examples of, for example, the book of Jonah, which was revolutionary for the time, where Jonah the prophet is sent to the ultimate enemy of the people of God in Nineveh, in Assyria. These were the ultimate enemies of the people of God. And this is revealed, isn't it, by the fact that when God tells him, that, don't you love Jonah? When God reveals to him, go preach to them, well, he goes reluctantly. But when he discovers this might work, he not only does he get angry, but he wants to die. I can't believe it. They've repented. I want to die. Oh my gosh. Why is that? Because there was this sort of misguided belief among the people of God that we are the people of God. And it's true that they were, but that means everybody else, the Goyim, the nations, they're dogs. They're nothing. And God, in revolutionary ways, like in the book of Jonah, reveals God's mercy extends beyond the borders of Israel. In fact, it extends to the entire world. Now I would add the books of Hosea and Song of Solomon. There you get a real mystical sense of God's love for the people of God, and it becomes analogous to the marital act, right? God refers to the people of God as his bride. We see, hint of what's coming, and of course comes in a much fuller way in Jesus being the bride, or the bridegroom, and the church being the bride. So I think what you find are a lot of parallels to God's love, his mercy, his forgiveness. It is without end in the Old Testament, just as you see in the New Testament. And then I also have to say, on the flip side, you also have Ananias and Sapphira in Acts chapter 5, verses 1 through 10, where God says, justice didn't go away either, right? And so, you have Simon the sorcerer in Acts chapter 8, verses 14 through 17. You have Jesus putting his finger in the face of the Pharisees in John 8:44 and saying, you are of your father the devil. He was a liar from the beginning, and so are you. You mean loving Jesus did that? I think he made a whip out of cords there in John chapter 2 as well. And we could talk about so many other examples. So the bottom line is what you see in Old and New. God is infinitely just, and he is infinitely merciful.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Got to keep moving. Lots of folks on the line. It's open forum. Tim Staples is our guest. Kendra in Maryland, watching on YouTube. You're up next. Go ahead, Kendra.
Hi. I sent in a message when I was 14, so several years ago, to Tim Staples, and now I am almost 20 years old, and I'm in RCIA, and I just wanted to thank Tim for everything that he's done and really helped me with my journey. And
wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Kendra. You just made my day, week, month, year. Well, God bless you. And so how can we help you today, Kendra?
I just wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for not only myself, but so many other people. You've helped my brother come to the church, and I really just wanted to thank you for everything.
Oh, wow. Thanks. Thank you, Kendra, for calling in. God bless you. And you know what, Cy, that is what makes every day here at Catholic Answers worth it.
Boy, that's a beautiful thing to call and say that, Kendra. Thank you very much. Maybe we could send her Tim's book if she doesn't have it, Behold Your Mother.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it if we can. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples on Catholic Answers Live.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. It's free, and you'll have instant access to our daily broadcast, the schedule of upcoming shows, and you'll even be able to search the archive and listen to thousands of past shows. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Most of us Catholic parents agree our number one goal in life is to pass on the faith to our children. But here's the bad news. Today's world has a million ways to steal your kid's soul. Don't be afraid, says Father Sebastian Walsh. God loves your children even more than you do, and He desires their salvation more than anything. In his groundbreaking new book, Always a Catholic, Father Walsh shows you how to cooperate with God to bring about the fulfillment of His will for your kids. Always a Catholic reminds us that keeping our kids in the faith is about the way we live our Catholicism in our own lives and as a family from day to day. Order your copy of Always a Catholic by visiting shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Tomorrow on More to Life, Getting Over Guilt.
We'll help you combat the guilt that weighs you down.
That's tomorrow on More to Life. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Tim Staples is our guest, and Tim and I are partnering up in a new thing they're doing here. I don't think you even know this because I just have this note in front of me. Do you want to know all there is to know about the Holy Family? Order the new Holy Family Pack. Tim Staples, Behold Your Mother. Cy Kellett, A Teacher of Strange Things. And our brand new release, To Know St. Joseph. All three for just $30. A savings of 45%. Visit shop.catholic.com
and I want to thank
order
you.
Your 3-pack today.
And I want to thank you, Cy, for donating all those royalties you're going to get from that
so
to
that
me.
You could have that.
Yeah, that
it's
was
beautiful
really
of me,
nice of you.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
And you just did it.
No, I got to replace my roof, Tim. I can't. Let's go. Oh, where are we going? Texas. Tony, Texas, listening on Catholic.com. Glad to have you, Tony. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hello.
Hi, Tony.
Hello, Tony from Texas.
Hi. I was talking to one of my friends this morning, and out of the blue, one of them asked if we thought there was any stigma or disapproval against asexuals in society, with asexual being not sexually attracted to another human being.
Right.
As it went on, it progressed to if we thought there was any stigma against asexuals present in religion, like how some religions have a stigma towards homosexuals and or homosexual acts.
Right.
And finally, the view of asexuality from the Catholic faith. And
Sure.
I didn't know what was the Catholic Church's view on asexuality. And so I spent some time looking on it for answers online, and I could find very little on the topic. So, but that being said,
well, Tony,
what is the Catholic Church's view?
Yeah, in fact, I was talking during the break with Cy about a very close friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years, who is in fact asexual. And do you think I could tell you that little anecdote? Or
nobody knows his name.
Yeah. Well, just to give you an example, and this man is brilliant. He years ago helped me with research. He's done a tremendous apologist, actually, a theologian, philosopher. But he was asexual. He had no drive whatsoever. And in fact, many years ago, just to see what's going on, he actually went into an illicit bookstore, not recommending this, folks, but he opened the pages of some of these things, and there was absolutely no attraction whatsoever. And all these years, he has lived as a celibate. And, he is an inspiration to me because, what this man has done over the years has been amazing. So the bottom line is, yes, asexuality is a real possibility. Sometimes it can be caused by abuse, there can be a real disorder down there. Sometimes it's simply, we don't know. And with my friend, he never had an in-depth medical exam to see what's going on here. But see, as Catholics, we approach it like Jesus in Matthew chapter 19, verse 12. Jesus talks about how there are some people who are born eunuchs. Some people are made eunuchs by others. That's kind of a, like in the royal palace sort of thing. Yeah. We don't recommend that, making someone. But notice Jesus says there are some who are born that way. Why? For the glory of God. And so in the Catholic Church, historically, we have had, and we'll never know this side of the veil, how many brothers, religious, even some priests, although it's generally recommended that priests not be asexual. It's generally recommended that a priest be ordered as a man toward a woman. In fact, Pope Francis just recently, back in 2018, issued a very strong statement that those who are attracted to the same sex and have that dominant in their personality should not be admitted to holy orders, right? Because that is a defect of character. Whereas in the church, you don't see, and my point, Jesus Christ himself. He didn't say there are those who are born eunuchs and these people are defective. He didn't say that, right? Homosexuality, the tendency toward the same sex is a defect, we believe. Now, it's not a sin, of course, unless someone acts on that tendency, because the tendency itself is not a sin, but it is a defect in as much as a man is ordered toward a man, woman toward a woman. So that gets at your questions. Now, we don't put a stigma on those who are attracted to the same sex, and certainly not those who are asexual. We simply lay out the truth as it has been revealed to us and as we can know through natural law, that some things are contrary to our nature, right? Like homosexual acts, that's contrary to our natures. And really, it's not difficult to discern this, because we can really just look at our bodies, how man is ordered toward woman and woman toward man, and know that that's contrary to nature, right? To have conjugal or sexual relations, I should say, sexual relations, man, man, woman, woman. Asexuality is a whole nother animal, because you're talking about someone who is merely, abstaining from sexual acts, doesn't have any desire for them, right? That is not contrary to anything. Someone who does that, Jesus Christ himself, now we would believe he would have had the normal attraction to woman, which is one of the natural inclinations that all human beings have. But of course, he never sinned. He never had disordered passions at all whatsoever. He was free from all sin, of course. But again, I would just push back a little bit on the idea of stigmatizing, because it's really not about stigmatizing. We don't look, in fact, Pope Francis, I've mentioned him before, is very strong, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church, I would remind you, in section 2358, talks about how we should not discriminate unjustly against people who suffer from same-sex attraction, or as the Catechism calls them, homosexual persons. We should not discriminate against them, but reach out in love and help them to understand that they're being called by God to carry a particular cross, as we all are, no matter what our inclinations may be. And we all have, because of original sin, my friend Tony, we have all sorts of disordered passions that we cannot act on. I know if I acted on a lot of the disordered passions I've had in the past, I'd probably be in prison, because that guy that cut me off in traffic, no, I'm kidding. We have to learn to act like human beings. And for that, we look to human nature, and we act in accordance with the natural law written on our hearts, as well as the revelation given to us by God.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Tony.
Appreciate
God bless
that
you.
question. It's open forum. Tim Staples is our guest. We got time for another one before we got to take a break. Let's go to Chris in Pennsylvania, also listening on the Catholic Answers app. Chris, go ahead with your question for Tim.
Yeah, Tim. I've recently decided to consecrate myself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Beautiful.
I got Michael Gatley's 33 Days of Morning Glory book.
Beautiful.
I was and I chose my consecration day of December 8th, the Immaculate Conception.
Oh, yeah.
My question is, exactly, how do I go about this? And once I am consecrated, what does that mean? Do I have to, do devotions every day, pray the rosary? What's, a meaning of it?
Right. Well, I think you're about to really learn a ton by going through the 33 days with Father Michael Gately. He's just got tremendous insight in that book. It is really extraordinary what he has done there. But basically what you are doing, my friend, is something that is, let's put it this way. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, Chris, in section 971, the Catechism says, devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, is intrinsic to Christian worship. Right? I tell you, Chris, when I say that, a lot of my Protestant friends hit the roof. What? Does that mean we worship Mary? No. It's intrinsic to Christian worship. Why is that? Because it is rooted, Chris, in the 10 Commandments. And the last time I checked, the 10 Commandments are not the 10 options. Am I right, Si? They're the 10 Commandments. And the fourth commandment, of course, commands us to honor our father and mother, in fact, so that our days may be prolonged on earth. It's the first commandment with an immediate promise. As my dad would point out to us when we were kids, do you want your days prolonged on this earth? You better honor your father and mother on this earth. But there's a powerful truth here. Because we are adopted sons of God, and even more through baptism, incorporated into the body of Christ, right? We're members of Christ. His mother is our mother. We have an obligation to honor her, and that is why it is at the heart of Christian worship. We cannot simply say, I'm not going to honor the Blessed Mother, any more than I can say, I'm not going to honor my mother. Well, you're going to be breaking the fourth commandment. And Jesus had a lot to say about breaking the fourth commandment. See Matthew chapter 15, Mark chapter 7, and the Korban rule, right, folks? A lot of you know what I'm talking about here. So I think what you're doing in honoring the Immaculate Heart of Mary gets to the core of what it means to be a Christian. Jesus, when he was dying on the cross, gave us his mother. He didn't just give Mary to John when he said to John, behold your mother. And remember, John's mother was right there by the cross. She was just standing back a little ways, and he says, behold your mother. Well, John knew full and well what that meant. In fact, John later tells us what it means in Revelation chapter 12. The same John the Apostle that was standing there wrote the book. And he's the one who shows in verses 4 and 5 the woman clothed with the sun giving birth to Jesus. But then in verse 17 it says she also gives birth to all those who have the testimony of Jesus Christ and keep the commandments. That is, she's the mother of us all. And so in honoring the Blessed Virgin Mary, and I'll toss in this last thing because we could go all day on this, brother. In Luke chapter 2, verses 34 and 35, check out the prophecy, and you'll be reading about this in Father Michael Gately's 33 Days and the consecration there. But in Luke 2, 34 and 35, remember Simeon the prophet, he prophetically says, behold, and he's prophesying concerning what John was going to experience 3 years later, or more than 3 years, many years later, decades later at the foot of the cross, when he says, behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel to be a sign of contradiction which shall be spoken against. And he said to Mary, a sword will pierce your soul also, that the thoughts, the dialogsmoi ekkardion, the thoughts out of, it's actually ekkardion palon, the thoughts out of many hearts will be manifest. I want you to notice something here because this gets to the heart of your question. That Simeon prophesied that it would be at the foot of the cross, that the Immaculate Heart of Mary would be joined to the Sacred Heart of Jesus in a suffering beyond anything you and I could ever fathom, and it would give birth to all of us. And so when Jesus says to John, behold your mother, he is fulfilling the prophecy of Simeon. And so in a real and powerful way, when you do the consecration of the Blessed Mother, you are joining the Blessed Mother and John the Apostle at the foot of the cross. And you are allowing Jesus to do his will and his work through his mother in you, my friend. And for all eternity, you will never be sorry you did that, because that, my friends, is our salvation.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for the question. More questions to come. It's Open Forum with Tim Staples on Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, this is Archbishop Alexander Sample of the Archdiocese of Portland in Oregon. Keep that dial right here on Catholic Answers Live.
St. John Paul II stated that, for the disciple of Christ, evangelization is a duty, an obligation of love, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that evangelization is necessary for salvation.
So we know we're called, but how do we do it?
St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. To learn more, contact us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Faith is a precious gift from God. As the largest religious media network in the world, EWTN has an important role in educating others about our Catholic faith and spreading the good news of salvation. We invite you to explore our numerous pages of historical faith documents, prayers, teachings, and other current issues in Catholicism today. Visit EWTN.com and click Catholicism. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Tim Staples is our guest, and it's Open Forum. You can ask him whatever you want. Tim, you going anywhere?
Yeah, you know what? It's next week. I'm going to be heading somewhere. I should have been prepared.
I'm sorry.
Because I can't remember exactly where, but yeah, I'm heading out. I got all kinds of trips coming up, man.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Christy in Sanibel Island. Oh, that's down there in the beautiful part of Florida.
By the way, I'll be ready next week to tell you where I'm going.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, I'm just thinking about beautiful Florida right now. I've never been to Sanibel Island, but we'll go to Christy. Christy, you there with us?
I am. Thank you so much. And before I ask my question, Tim and Sai, you are just gorgeous brothers in Christ. Thank you. And I cannot tell you how much I've loved Behold Your Mother, Tim, and I look forward to reading so much A Teacher of Strange Things, Sai.
Oh, you might be getting it free. I don't know. You might be getting it free. Yeah,
I love
we have a
that.
policy around here. Anybody who uses the word gorgeous gets the book for free. That's just we wrote that
love
down
it.
years ago.
I love it. I love that rule.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quick. I know you've got a lot of people waiting, Tim, but
Yes.
this is a question I've always had, and especially this Sunday when I was at Mass, I kept thinking, I've got to ask them this. Just since the priest is in persona Christi, is it accurate, and I want your answer to be yes, because I would love this, but is it accurate to understand that the priest is actually in that moment, in that discrete moment of consecrating the elements, can we understand that he is actually Jesus in substance, like we understand, and that his body is actually just an accidental, like we would understand that the blood and the body as represented in the wine and the bread. The bread and the wine still look like bread and wine, but that the appearance is just accidentals. Can we understand that the priest's body, that he looks like a priest, is just an accidental, like we understand the bread and the wine are just accidentals in that they look like bread and wine? Or is that taking the priest too far? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, Christy, that would be taking it too far because there is no substantial change. He is still completely human. So you don't want to go that far to where, no, all that exists there are accidentals, because then, of course, there would be no longer a human person there at all. There would be only the divine person, Jesus Christ. Okay, so we don't want to go there. But what we can say is, number one, this is a great mystery, right? So radical. This is what the church teaches, that the priest is so radically configured to Christ through the sacrament of holy orders that he can say, this is my body, not this is Jesus' body. He can say, I absolve you of your sins, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, not Jesus absolves you. So at that holy, or those holy and sacred moments, he is so radically configured to Christ that it is Christ who is speaking through him, and not just in the way that, if Cy Kellett is really moved by the Holy Spirit to proclaim some truth, that we can say, wow, Jesus really spoke through you. This is much more than that. We can't really define what it is because it's a mystery, but we can say what it's not, and it's not that. Right? It's much more radical than that. It is actually Jesus speaking through the priest in such a radical way that we can say he is Christ at those moments. Not a transubstantiation, not that he disappears, no, but we can say there are two persons speaking at that moment. Not that one disappears and it's only the one, but there are two persons speaking, the priest and Christ who speaks through him. And again, I emphasize, we should not be afraid to emphasize this is a mystery. No matter how you try to teach it, you can never plumb the depths of the wonders of the priesthood and this great gift of him speaking and acting in persona Christi.
Now I got to say Christi. That's weird. Okay. Christi in persona. Well, Christi anyways. Hang on. If you hang on the line, we'll get your address and we'll send you a copy of the book everyone's talking about, A Teacher of Strange Things, who Jesus was, what he taught, and why people still follow him. You look skeptical, Darren. Everyone is talking about that book. Everyone.
Yeah, Cy is everyone.
Let's go to James in the Philippines watching on YouTube. Good morning, James. Thank you very much for the call.
Greetings, brothers.
Greetings.
Nope. Yeah, so, hello?
Nope, go ahead. Sorry, James.
What's on your mind, brother?
Yeah. I'm really about to confession as soon as the show ends. But speaking of, we usually go to one of the Bible verse. The Bible verse we usually go to when talking about confession is John 20.
Yes.
When Jesus blessed the apostles, received the Holy Spirit, and all that.
Yes.
But suppose that I'm to play devil's advocate and say that doesn't mean all sins. That's probably like just forgive people who offend you. General confession. Why is this not the case?
Right. Well, it's a great question and a very important question, my friend. But I think the key is we're talking here after the resurrection. The apostles are gathered together for fear of the Jews. This is a very sacred moment where Jesus appears to them, and he is proclaiming something we believe. In fact, if you look at parallel texts of after the resurrection, Jesus isn't talking about, just, hey guys, how you doing, right? We see the Great Commission, for example, in Matthew 28, 19, and 20. Go into all the world. You see it also in Mark 16, 15, and 16. You see it in Luke 24, the proclamation of repentance to the nations. And so this is an extremely important moment where Jesus is basically giving them their marching orders. And so that's very important. And when you look at the context, notice how he begins it in verse 21. He says, as the Father has sent me. That's a key, Si.
Right.
That is a key, my friend. As the Father has sent me, so do I send you. And then he breathes on them and says, receive the Holy Spirit. So notice, as the Father has sent me, we have to ask, what did the Father send Jesus to do? Well, one thing he sent Jesus to do is proclaim the fullness of truth. He is the truth, right? And you see that mentioned, especially in Matthew and in Mark's gospel at the Great Commission, right? Well, what else did he come to do? He wasn't only a prophet, right? Well, he was also a priest and a king. Interestingly, in Luke 24, we could back up to Luke 20, verses 29 through 32. I'm sorry, that would be Luke 22, verses 29 through 32. We see Jesus emphasizes the juridical, the kingly authority that he's given to the apostles, right? He says to them, I will establish you as 12 rulers, notice the language, to sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So prophet in Matthew and Mark, we have king here, authority, juridical authority here in Luke 22, 29 through 32. Well, what do we have in John's gospel? We have the priestly power, the forgiveness of sins. And so he communicates to them the same authority he had, right? To be priest, prophet, and king. And then notice the language, as the Father has sent me, so did I send you. Well, what did the Father send Jesus to do? Very importantly, among the other things we could talk about, in Matthew chapter 9, verses 2 through 6, Mark chapter 2, also verses 2 through 6, we see him forgive the sins of the paralytic. And notice what he says, your sins are forgiven thee. Well, he gives that same authority to the apostles. This is the context. As the Father has sent me, so do I send you. Then he breathes on them, indicating this is not going to be done by your power, but by the power of the Holy Spirit. He breathed on them, said, receive the Holy Spirit. Whosoever sins you forgive are forgiven. Whosoever sins you retain, they are retained. Jesus is not sending them just to give those who personally have offended you, because that's not what Jesus came to do. He came to forgive everyone who would repent, right? Well, Jesus is giving that same power to them. As the Father has sent me, so then he breathes on them, receive the Holy Spirit. Whosoever sins you forgive are forgiven. Whosoever sins you retain, they're retained. And my friend, there's a lot more we could talk about here, but I would encourage you as well to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17, where St. Paul describes this gift that Jesus gave to the church in his own apostolic ministry that would come about years later after John chapter 20, when he says, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. Old things are passed away. This is 2 Corinthians 5:17. Behold, all things are new. And all this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and has given to us the ministry of reconciliation. Right? The same ministry of reconciliation that Jesus had, reconciling the world to God. That's not just forgiving oh, you hurt that, guys. No, that's reconciling people to God. And guess what? He gives that same ministry to the church. This is much more, my friend, than what your Protestant friends will tell you John 20 is about.
Hey, James, this is very fortuitous because on Thursday of this week, we have an episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, which is about this passage, John 20:23, with Carlo Broussard. And it's about just exactly what Tim just went over. We spend 25 minutes with Carlo talking about this passage and the various arguments that are made against it as far as referring to sacramental confession. And believe it or not, by the end, Carlo prevails over all those arguments and convinces us it's about sacramental confession.
Amen.
So check out Focus on Thursday, CatholicAnswersFocus.com. Thanks, Tim. Thanks very much.
Thank you, brother. God bless you.
Another fine hour. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing.